Hi, and thank you so much for tuning in to today's video. If you've been following me, you already know that I blew the whistle on the cult of the fraud who calls himself Nithyananda a couple of years ago after I found out that kids in his Gurukul, although he promoted that residential school as following the principle of ahimsa, which is nonviolence, the kids themselves confided in me that behind the scenes they were beaten, brutalized, refused water, refused food, sleep deprived, and forced into a child labor situation in which they were responsible for taking payments from people for programs, recruiting people into the cult, and faking superpowers in order to con and swindle innocent seekers. And I just couldn't live with myself knowing that kids were suffering in that way without going public. Since that time, it was, I think, September 11th of 2019 when I first opened up publicly about that child abuse. And since then, there has been a parade of people escaping Nithyananda's cult, coming forward about their abuse stories, what they have witnessed, the crimes that they were drawn into, and the justifications the cult leader made, and basically just how much more sinister it was than just the child beatings. And I don't say that lightly. I mean, how much more sinister can an evil organization get than child labor and beatings and fake superpowers to con people in their religious sentiments? That's already really, really bad. So how much worse does it actually get? I'm going to delve into that right now. So I know it's been a while since the last time I made a YouTube video, but I have been really active online on Twitter, regularly tweeting what people tell me when they escape the cult, sharing some of the insider information that comes from people who are not yet ready to reveal their identities publicly. If you're one of my regular followers, you'll also remember that after I blew the whistle on this cult, I was hit with unbelievably stupid false accusations of everything from assassination attempt, poisoning the fraud, to raping members of his organization, to being paid by the Vatican to destroy Hinduism. They called me an Illuminati person. Like they didn't spare any brain cells in trying to destroy my reputation and my credibility. And so because of that, a lot of people who escape, who have dirt on the organization and who have really extreme abuse that they've suffered, that they want to share with the public in order to save other people out of that cult, they're just not quite ready for a fake rape accusation or to be a target of possibly even murder for those who are in India. It's a really dangerous organization. I no longer think of this as being just a cult. I used to compare Nithyananda to Keith Raniere and say that this is a lot like NXIVM. It still is. It still is a lot like NXIVM in a lot of ways, but it's also a lot worse in a lot of ways. And this might sound triggering to people who have suffered in a cult or who have been branded the way DOS members within NXIVM were branded. It might sound insensitive to say that the cult I escaped is worse than NXIVM, but I think you'll understand why I'm saying that when I get into the human trafficking, sex trafficking, prostitution rings, money mules, horrific beatings that people endured, and also the murder of a 24-year-old girl when she decided she wanted to leave and she found out about Nithyananda's behind-the-scenes sex life. So it's really something that I haven't gotten into yet on YouTube, which is going into the whistleblowing that's coming from anonymous sources, because I don't like to share any tips or any incidents that I wasn't either a direct witness of or that I've heard of from somebody who I can't name, just for the sake of credibility. And so the reason I've decided to share this stuff now is that I've heard the exact same horror stories from multiple different Nithyananda cult survivors who don't know I'm in contact with each other, who don't have contact with each other, some who spoke only Tamil, some who spoke only English, some who were, you know, in some place and some who were in another place. So I know they're not conspiring to feed me false information, which might seem paranoid, but you have to be really careful when it comes to who to trust in a group of people who have been brainwashed. Anyway, I am very confident that all of this information is true, given the source of who has shared it. And I invite you to come along to Twitter. I've got my Twitter page open, which is what I'll be reading from in some of this video to share with you what has come out new. And if you come to Twitter, if you follow me, my Twitter handle is @Sarah_S_Landry, and I'll put that in the video description box. And the other Twitter handles I really suggest that you follow, because they are sharing tips from insiders who they themselves are insiders who left the cult. So it's their direct personal experience, and it's things that they have either personally endured or directly witnessed. And those accounts are @SBYSteve, I don't know how to pronounce it, Yescape Velocity. I think it's supposed to be like Yescape Velocity, Tamil accent, but the person's name is Escaped Recently. PLB I Got Out is the one who is @SpySteve. Antaryami and Escaped Nithyananda. So I'll try to put links to all of those different Twitter accounts in the video description below. These are my informants, so to speak. It's not like I'm in touch with them on the phone, it's that we are in touch on Twitter. And a lot of this information, like I said, it has been cross-referenced and verified by other people who have been there. So I'm sorry for such a long-winded introduction to the topic, but what is going to be revealed is of such extreme horror that if I didn't know that these people are real and that they were there, I would have struggled to believe it myself, because it is just so absurdly cruel what people in the cult are doing to each other under instruction of the fraud Nithyananda. So he is dangerous. He needs to be brought to justice immediately. If you've heard the rumor that he died or that he's going into samadhi for 4 years, don't believe it. This is a tactic he has used since his initial arrest and imprisonment in 2010 to try to get public sympathy and to try to hide his true actions. So whenever he claims he's going into samadhi or that he can't speak because his energy level is so high, what that has meant in the past is that he's going into hiding, he's running from the authorities. It's possible whichever country he's bribed his way into has turned on him if they've found out what kind of a con artist, swindler, rapist, murderer he actually is. It's possible that he's in danger, not in danger of being treated as badly as his slaves are treated, but in danger of being extradited to India to face his rape trial. So he would never openly tell his brainwashed followers, the police could catch me, so I have to go into hiding. Instead, he'll say, oh, my spiritual energy is so high, I'm going into samadhi. You won't hear from me for another 4 years. And I know he does have health issues. He has had issues with his heart. He has diabetes. He has fatty liver. He's been like inactive, lazy for as long as he's been a fake guru. So it's not a surprise that he would be suffering a heart attack or dying young. His father died before he was 50, so it does run in his family. But I think it's too good to be true. We all would love if his cult was ended by any means, but I don't think he's actually going to die. The amount of money he spends on doctors and specialists who he flies in to treat him, I don't think he's going to die. I think it's all a trumped up fake story and that he's covering up a move. That's the most likely scenario. Anyway, the latest people who have escaped have been sharing things that confirm something I've suspected, which is that Nithya watches the NXIVM documentaries and watches Scientology documentaries and puts into practice the disgusting things those psychopathic leaders are doing because he wants to do everything. He wants to be the most extreme brainwasher ever to brainwash people. And so one of the latest tidbits of information, Escaped recently tweeted, last year a few chosen men and women of the cult, including me, were instructed to come to a room in the new 24-room block after having shaved our pubes. We all got tattoos of Nithya's name in our pubes. Pranapriya was overlooking everyone getting tattooed by a male tattoo artist. And so if you've seen the NXIVM docuseries, you'll know that Keith Raniere did this to his followers. He made them all get his initials tattooed in their pubic area. The fact that Nithyananda did this to his followers after the NXIVM case broke leads me to believe Nithyananda did this after getting the idea from Keith Raniere. This same account wrote, in response to discussions about beatings in the cult, even kids were not spared. Oh, sorry, this is in reference to the sexual abuse. Even kids were not spared. Nithya groomed 3 boys to do blowhole and sex for him, whom I know personally. And to be clear, this is who this person knows personally, not who I know personally. I'm just reading it. These boys told me once how Nithya encouraged them to sleep on the same bed as him when they were minors, and later they denied it. So it sounds like these kids confided in this anonymous whistleblower, and then when they grew up, brainwashed completely, surrendered completely to that fraud. Most likely their parents are in the cult very deep, because most of the kids in that Gurukul, not most, all of the kids in that Gurukul come from families who are part of the cult. And so they denied it later, but when they were kids, they told this person Nithyananda groomed them for sex and made them sleep in his bed. And so I'm also feeling like his cry of heart attack or this fake story circulating that he's dying or he's going into samadhi, I think it's because he's starting to understand the severity of raping kids. His life has already been destroyed in India because the brave Arti Rao, who was one of his original rape victims, took out a case against him, and he ran away from India to escape that case, while that is just a grown-up woman. So imagine the public outcry, imagine the judge's reaction if any of the kids he raped while they were still minors took the same brave step Arti took and hired a lawyer and charged him with rape of an underage kid. The other thing is Nithyananda knows the severity of a rape case in India, because the way he tries to silence whistleblowers or people who leave him or anyone who tries to expose him, including journalists and Indian press people, people like Lenin Karupan, who helped Arti Rao get her legal case together, he instructs female disciples to put false rape accusations on them. So he rapes kids, he rapes women, he rapes men, And when his rape victims try to get support and bring him to justice for raping them, he makes his brainwashed followers falsely accuse his victims of rape. And so it's really, really maddening to me that nobody is stopping him, because he's committing perjury. He's forcing his disciples to commit perjury. They're all lying under oath, pretending to have been raped, even though they weren't raped by the people they're falsely accusing, who are Nithyananda's victims. They were raped by Nithyananda. So it's like one victim is supporting a rapist by falsely accusing another victim of raping them, who was also raped by the same rapist. It's absolutely sickening, and really he has to be stopped. This person escaped recently said that he was there when the false cases against me were being created to put on social media, and he saw Sundareshwara initially didn't want to falsely accuse me of rape, but they threatened him that he would have to do intense prayaschita, which means getting the shit beaten out of him, being forced to do hard manual labor, if he didn't. And, you know, I replied to this escaped recently and said, not only Sundareshwara, all the false rape accusations against me were made up, were used to try to do a character assassination. And this person said, yes, I know that. I wouldn't be tagging you in my tweets if I didn't know for a fact that all the rape accusations against you are false. And so if you've ever gone to the website the fraud who calls himself Nithyananda made his disciples create to try to cry persecution, to pretend that they're a persecuted minority group in which elaborate, violent, sex-violent crimes are described by his followers, claiming that anti-Hindu elements or people who are against him are perpetrating these crimes. Look at this guy's Twitter page, read through everything he's tweeted, because he described in detail how it was Achala and Ma Pranapriya, the two current leaders within the Bididi branch of the cult, which is like the main campus. It was them who instructed women and children to write what he described as horrific sex fantasies and to claim that Nithyananda's detractors had done those things. They even falsely accused the police in Gujarat, who closed down their campus because they found child porn on Pranapriya's laptop, and because Nandita had been kidnapped, and because the Sharma kids spoke about getting beaten. The cult even falsely accused those police officers of sexually harassing kids when they went in to save those kids from the cult. So they will attack anybody and everybody. They believe wrongly that if you falsely accuse a victim, that it's like the two accusations cancel each other out. It's like, well, Sarah Landry says Nithyananda sexually harassed her, but nobody will believe her if we say that she sexually harassed these people. What they don't understand is that truth will always come out. You can give me a lie detector test and I will tell you I have never raped anybody. I've never kept a sex slave. I've never poisoned anybody. I'm not Illuminati. I'm not hired by the Vatican. It's laughable, the false accusations they put on me. But what's not laughable are the actual crimes this cult is committing and the people who are being tortured and killed. On the line of killing, I mean, there's beatings that go on too. Like this person wrote, a Malaysian boy, Shiva Shankara, tried to escape, and Niti told Pranapriya and Sri Yoga to beat up the minor at the hut near the temple, and all was silenced about it. Parents, even your kids are not safe physically. So he's saying, parents who have kids in that cult, your kids are not safe. Do the right thing. Do what Janardana Sharma did and pull your kids out of there. Because if they try to escape, they will be beaten bloody. And that is not something anybody should have to endure. Let's see. He wrote, even Ma Prakashika, 57 years old, was beaten so badly by JSP, who is the late Jnanaswarupa, and Hamsa. She used to cry to fellow women. She was for more than 2 years not allowed to wear earrings, which is a huge disrespect to a woman, denying her the right to wear earrings. Asked to stay and sleep in a creepy shed with 24/7 CCTV camera, even when she slept. So this is like the way prisoners are tortured when they're put into an isolation and under 24-hour camera surveillance. This is how Nithyananda treats his devoted disciples. People give up their entire life to serve him, and in return they get beaten bloody, yelled at, called dog, called prostitute, called bastard, put into a prison-like situation, interrogated. It's just so sinister. He says, people in India think BJP supports Nithya, but in reality, Nithya has a strong silent support from the top brass of Congress. Sonia Gandhi's right hand, Ambika Soni, is one of Nithyananda's followers. So I think these people should be questioned. Let's see. He's saying about the smuggling of assets, people need to understand all the silver and gold are assets of Nithyanandeshwar Devasthanam Trust. Trust means it's public property managed by the trust. Nithyananda loots the silver and gold bought through public funds as per Indian law and has them trafficked by Western money mules to his hideout. So if you heard my interview with Lanie, she actually talked about that, how when she left Ecuador to go to Trinidad after Nithyananda fled from Ecuador, she was given a suitcase and told you're not allowed to open it or see the contents. She had to leave all her stuff behind, all her toiletries, all her extra clothing, her towel, whatever few meager possessions she was allowed to keep, she had to abandon them in order to take a suitcase for the fraud guru, which she was forbidden to look inside. And she said she only found out when customs did a search of her luggage that it was full of gold and silver. And if you didn't know this already, according to the FBI, it is illegal to be a money mule. You're not allowed to bring stolen property or money in excess of a certain amount across an international border. And it's also very highly suspicious if anybody asks you to bring a suitcase on a plane, but you don't know the contents of that suitcase. I mean, all of us who have traveled, we know when we're checking in our luggage, they'll ask, did you pack this bag yourself? And you have to say yes. And you should have actually packed it yourself. Otherwise, you could be unwittingly smuggling drugs, firearms, money, a bomb, who knows? And so, yeah, Lanie has told us about that. Now, this insider is telling us a deeper layer of that, which is that these were not just gold and silver jewels. These were gold and silver jewels owned by the people of India because it was the property of a trust, not Nithyananda's personal money. So he's stealing from his charity to support his criminal activity, to bribe officials, to pay lawyers, to pay exorbitant, extravagant hotel fees because he insists on living in the lap of luxury, while his followers literally die because of neglect. This account had spoken about a lady who recently died in his cult after being bitten by a snake, and he said what's really sad is that she would have survived if they had rushed her to a hospital, because a snake bite is not a deadly injury anymore. There are antivenoms, there are ways to heal a person from a poisonous snake bite. But because Nithyananda denied them money to buy fuel for their cars, they couldn't drive her to the hospital. And so she died a needless, senseless, sad death due to his neglect, his direct neglect. And this was a lovely Tamil lady who spent all of her time chopping vegetables in his kitchen. She did not deserve that. Nobody deserves that. And so when we say Nithyananda eats like a king, sleeps in the fanciest hotels, spares no expense for his own comfort and his own luxury while his disciples suffer, it's not just that they're not getting gourmet food, it's that sometimes they are starving. And it's not just that, they don't get to go to the dentist twice a year like we all do. It's that they don't get rushed to emergency even after a poisonous snake bite. Like it's not, these people could have more. It's that these people have nothing. And I think that's what the public needs to understand. After you give Nithyananda your entire life savings, your devotion, your family, either you cut off ties with people who don't follow him or you bring everybody to him with you. After you give him literally everything you have, he works you like a slave and doesn't give a shit if you die in service to him. He sees people as expendable. And this person wrote that his wake-up call, like his last straw moment, was when Nithyananda grunted through his teeth, let everyone in India die, when the COVID virus was really hurting so many people in India. And this escaped recently person said, no incarnation of God, no incarnation of Shiva would be so evil as to curse innocent people to death and to take sinister delight in knowing that they were dying. And what grudge does Nithyananda have against the people of India? He resents the fact that they didn't just quash his rape case. He petitioned the High Court to dismiss Aarti Rao's case, and his petition for dismissal was refused. And so because of that, his narcissistic self now hates everybody in India. He sees them as his enemy. Escaped recently also tweeted in one of his tweets that after Nithyananda was released from prison in 2010, he yelled at all of his ashramites and told them that they had committed Guru Droha, which is like a sin against the Guru, by not self-immolating outside of his prison. And he told them if they had burned themselves to death in front of his prison cell, he would have blessed them and liberated them, and he would have been released because the public would have had an outcry, they would have recognized him as an enlightened master, and his trouble would have ended. So he rapes Aarti Rao, he has a sex tape made with Ranjita, he goes to prison rightfully because he's a rapist, and then instead of owning up to his crimes and admitting that he did something wrong and trying to make up for it, he puts all the blame, just like any narcissist psychopath would do, he puts all the blame on his devoted followers and tells them none of this would have happened if you had done the right thing and burned yourselves to death publicly in front of my prison. And this guy actually said he cried and felt guilty and decided if Nithyananda ever gets arrested and put in prison again, he'll do it. And so this is how a suicide bomber is prepared for their kamikaze mission. Like, these people were made to believe if they kill themselves to serve their guru, that's the right thing. If they don't kill themselves to serve their guru, it's the wrong thing. And they have been prepared for that since 2010. And this is something I thought started more recently because it was in 2017 when I heard Nithyananda tell the Rudrakanyas, who are the girls who dance for him publicly and perform sexual service to him privately, I heard him tell them that if somebody comes to a temple to insult their Shiva, which is him, to protect their Shiva, they should throw themselves off the temple roof and commit a holy suicide. as he called it. So this is why I say this could turn into a Jonestown scenario as the worst case scenario. And if the FBI doesn't take this seriously, if Interpol doesn't take this seriously, if the High Commission of India doesn't take it seriously, it is their fault. You know, ex-disciples, whistleblowers, survivors of horrific cult abuse, it should not be on our unprofessional, untrained, victimized shoulders to bring the rapist, murderous fraud to justice. And so I find it really frustrating. I'm sorry for kind of losing my temper here, but I find it unbelievably maddening that more than 2 years ago, I sent a complaint to the Bidadi police and the Ramanagara police, asking them really humbly to look into the Gurukul beatings and investigate Nithyananda as a sex offender, because Arti Rao is not his only victim. There are many of us victims. I named myself and one other person, a close friend of mine, who were both sexually harassed by Nithyananda, and those useless, bribed, corrupt police of Ramanagara and Bidadi refused to file that FIR. Every child who was abused, every person who was sexually victimized by Nithyananda, everyone who was beaten, starved, the lady who died of a snake bite, all of that is on the conscience and the karma of the police officers who refused to do the right thing and bring Nithyananda to justice and close his ashram. If you had incarcerated the people perpetuating violence against children, when we told you that they are committing violence against children, nobody would have died. The cows in the Goshala wouldn't have starved to death, and people wouldn't have been trafficked to dangerous third world countries with bribes and with smuggled Indian gold if you had done the right fucking thing. And so I really urge anybody watching this, if you have connections with Interpol or the FBI or Indian law enforcement or Trinidad law enforcement, because there's a lady I've heard called Sumati Ainal who is doing the bribery and the smuggling of Nithyananda in South America. She's pulling the strings there. Look into it. It's the least you can do is submit that tip to the law enforcement who's able to do something. And look at people like Escaped recently, even anonymous whistleblowers. I know he's telling the truth because a lot of the things he spoke about, I myself witnessed but never thought to share in a YouTube video because it was a minor detail. But to me, that lends this person credibility. So the last thing I wanted to share that he put in the video, because I'm going to have to go soon here, is that Sangeeta, the girl who died at age 24, he revealed that he knows for a fact she was poisoned to death, that this plot was planned by Ranjita and other minions of Nithyananda, that they decided to do it while Nithi was traveling so that the murder charge wouldn't fall on him if they were found out, if they didn't get away with it. They wanted to make sure he was out of the country so he wouldn't be charged. They poisoned her to death. They deliberately brought her to the welcome center so that she would be under CCTV footage at the moment of collapse so that they could claim it was an accident and say, well, look at the footage. She collapsed suddenly. It was a heart attack. That was all planned. But in reality, she was poisoned. And he said the reason she was punished, beaten, put into solitary confinement, kept under the guardianship of Gopika Swami, slow poisoned and killed disturbingly on camera, is because she found footage of Nithyananda having sex with women, the same kind of footage that was released to Sun TV. She tried to escape. She told her family that Nithyananda really is a sex criminal. And so they killed her. Rather than risk that the public finds out the truth about Nithyananda as a rapist, they killed her. And he said that they paid off the doctors at the Raja Rajeshwari Medical Hospital to remove her organs so that if ever the body was exhumed and an autopsy was performed, there would be no evidence of poisoning because her organs are missing. And he also revealed a detail that I've never seen before, maybe because I don't speak Tamil, so I don't understand the news coverage, but he said that to make it look like her organs had not been removed, the bribed doctors actually stuffed her corpse with clothing to fill it up, and that's why when her mother and father petitioned the police to have a second autopsy performed, that's what they found in her body. So that means in 2014, Nithyananda committed cold-blooded murder in order to prevent people from knowing the truth about his sexual crimes, his rapes. And I'm just thinking, are we going to let anybody else get killed by this cult before he's finally brought to justice? This is why I say he's way worse than Keith Raniere. He's way worse than L. Ron Hubbard. He's worse than Jeffrey Epstein. He's not only sex trafficking men, women, and children, and labor trafficking and keeping slaves in his Bididi campus and brutally beating elderly ladies and kids into submission. He's also murdering people, covering it up, keeping a gang of people who are also planning his crimes with him, running it like a true mafia boss, and he's getting away with it. He shouldn't be allowed the dignity of dying of a heart attack while on the run from the police. I feel like until he is actually stared down in court by the brave Aarti Rao, who I feel we all owe a debt of gratitude for being strong despite all their attacks against her and sticking with her case after over a decade of the court delaying it and delaying it and delaying it. I think he should have to face her in court and see her win. And he should be thrown back into the prison that he hated so much. He should know that all of his brainwashed disciples have woken up and are getting help and are recovering from the mind control. He should know that he is a complete failure. He should get beaten the way he made other people get beaten. He should have to eat the shit prison food that's even probably better than the food he made his disciples eat. He should have to suffer the indignity that he's made other people suffer. Then he can rot and die. Then he can have a heart attack. But until then, I'm sure he's just crying illness to try to get people to ignore the fact that he's on the move again. But remember, there's an Interpol Blue Corner notice against him, which means if he shows up in any international airport or public place, he will be arrested and extradited. So if you see him anywhere, call the police. And if you have any information about his crimes, about the human trafficking, child porn, forced labor, murders, beatings, kidnappings, rapes, any of it, I know it's a long list, but if you have information about any of his crimes, if you are one of his victims, but you're scared to go public because you know they will try to attack your reputation, you don't have to go public the way I've gone public. You can report the crime to your local authorities. I guess probably not Bididi or Ramanagara because they answer to Achala and you don't want that, but any decent police will take your report seriously. The FBI will take it seriously. Interpol, child protection organizations, women's protection organizations, and the UN. Can you believe the United Nations bought his bullshit of the fake rape accusations against his antagonists, against people, I don't want to say antagonists, against truth tellers and whistleblowers? The UN actually believed that he's the leader of a persecuted minority group, which is complete fabrication. So the UN also needs to be told, do not give any credibility or support to the fake nation of Kailasa, because all they are is a gang of brainwashed criminals lying, cheating, extorting, and falsely accusing people and smuggling goods and, you know, smuggling money out of non-taxed charities to help an absconded rapist murderer. And it's just ridiculous that people fall for this. In a day like today, when there are so many credible whistleblowers coming out and revealing the truth of who he is, of his crimes. So yeah, that's my I meant to make this a short video. It went a bit longer than planned. But yeah, I'm just urging you to not sit on this. If you have any information, give it to the authorities. Do what Escaped recently did maybe and start sharing it on Twitter or publicly. You don't have to reveal your identity. If you do want to reveal your identity and go public with it and you were an insider there, you know how to reach me. We can do an interview, but I just really strongly feel we have to stop him before it turns into a Jonestown, before somebody else dies of neglect, like the lady who died of a snake bite, before somebody else is murdered the way Sangeeta was murdered, before somebody else dies because the extreme pressure he's putting on them doesn't create the safety to live, like Satish, who died in a car wreck when Nithyananda gave him a last-minute instruction to drive at night on a dangerous road to smuggle women into Nepal. He has to be stopped. And I really think if we put ourselves, our resources together, we can stop him. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Other than this big load of disturbing information, I hope you're enjoying your day. I hope you're having a good springtime. I promise my next video will be a pleasant one. Maybe we'll do a draw with me art video, or I'll show you my latest creative projects. For the trolls who tell me I should forget about Nithyananda and move on with my life, I'm not going to leave Nithyananda alone until he is answering for his crimes. So just leave me alone about it. But also understand it's not like I'm 24/7 focused on this cult. I'm also making beautiful journals and making jewelry like the stuff I'm wearing that's in my Etsy shop. I'm doing tarot readings. I'm spending time with family. I'm traveling. So yeah, thanks but no thanks. You know, I'm moving on, but I'm also not letting go of the fight. Until we win it, I'm in it. Anyway, much love to you who support this important work, and I look forward to more updates to share with you as they come to me. Bye.